Welcome to the next prophecy update. We have a lot of information to cover today. As most of you know, there is a huge crisis developing in the Middle East. I know this update is a lot longer than usual, but please try to bear with me as there are many pieces to this diplomatic puzzle that I hope to bring to light. As Egypt burns, Obama parties. As Egypt continues to burn, Islamic radicals escaped from prison and the Muslim Brotherhood joined protesters on the street. Barack Obama watched basketball and partied on Saturday. Israel shocked by Obama's betrayal of Mubarak. If the Egyptian president is toppled, Israel will lose one of its very few friends in a hostile neighborhood, and President Barack Obama will bear a large share of the blame. Benjamin Netanyahu told ministers of the Jewish state to make no comment on the political cliffhanger in Cairo to avoid inflaming an already explosive situation. Obama on Sunday called for an orderly transition to democracy, stopping short of calling the Egyptian president to step down, but signaling that his days may be numbered. Netanyahu instructed Israeli ambassadors in a dozen key capitals over the weekend to impress on host governments that Egypt's stability is paramount. Jordan and Saudi Arabia see the reactions in the West and how everyone is abandoning the current Egyptian president. Could U.S. abandon Israel too? American response to the uprising in Egypt shows Washington has no qualms about dropping a longtime ally. Is Israel in danger of receiving similar treatment? Experts say possibilities always exist. Recommends strengthening relations with India and China. The United States sided with protesters over the weekend, threatening to stop aid to Egypt if the president does not promote reforms in the country. Washington also added that the Egyptians' public grievances require an immediate response from the government. According to the professor, Obama stabbed the Egyptian president in the back and has already turned its back on Israel once. So therefore, we must take a good look into the future and we must develop our relations with the rising powers. Obama will not veto UN assault on Jewish construction. Jerusalem, the Obama administration told the Palestinian Authority it will not veto an upcoming United Nations resolution condemning all Jewish construction in the West Bank and eastern sections of Jerusalem. The action would be unprecedented. Traditionally, the U.S. has vetoed such resolutions, which have deemed anti-Israel. The senior Palestinian official also told WorldNet Daily the U.S. signaled to the European Union it would not object if the EU follows the recent lead of Latin American countries in unilaterally recognizing a Palestinian state outside of negotiations with Israel. A draft of the UN resolution already has been circulated to all 15 members of the UN. It currently deems Israelis' construction in the West Bank and East Jerusalem as illegal. Before we continue, I would like us to take a quick look back at an incident that occurred in Cairo in 2009. Muslim Brotherhood invited to Obama's Cairo speech in 2009. The Muslim Brotherhood are expected to attend the President Obama's highly anticipated speech to the Muslim world Thursday in Cairo. 10 members of the Brotherhood's bloc received official invitations to attend the speech. The expected attendance of the Brotherhood members is stirring some criticism from the conservatives in the U.S., who say they do not represent the kind of moderate Muslims Obama should be appealing to. A ranking Republican on the House Intelligence Committee said, "I think the president takes some big risks by unilaterally putting out these olive branches." The Muslim Brotherhood, though, has a complicated history. Though the hardline group, which calls for an Islamic State and has close ties to the militant Hamas, is officially banned in Egypt, its members have considerable sway in the country and its lawmakers. The Brotherhood renounced the use of violence in the 1970s and now says it seeks democratic reform in Egypt. It is the most powerful opposition movement in the country, and many analysts argue Washington should engage the Brotherhood directly to show it's open to dealing with non-violent Islamic movements. So now, remembering that the Brotherhood renounced the use of violence in the 1970s and seeks reform in Egypt, let's see where that is getting them. Muslim Brotherhood wants war with Israel. One of the leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt called Egypt to stop pumping gas to Israel and prepare the Egyptian army for war with its eastern neighbor. U.S. open to role for Islamists in new Egypt government. But the Muslim Brotherhood must renounce violence and support democracy, the White House says. Reporting from Washington, the Obama administration said for the first time that it supports a role for groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood, a banned organization in a reformed Egyptian government. The organization must reject violence and recognize the democratic goals if the U.S. is to be comfortable with it taking part in the government. The statement was an acknowledgement that any popular accepted new government will probably include groups that are not considered friendly to U.S. interests. White House spokesman Robert Gibbs said, "The U.S. government has had no contact with the Muslim Brotherhood because of questions over its commitment to the rule of law, democracy, and non-violence." So, according to Robert, the United States of America has never had any contact with the Muslim Brotherhood whatsoever. Which is funny because we just saw that in 2009, Obama did indeed invite 10 members of the Muslim Brotherhood to a speech in Cairo. That is definitely a little telling, isn't it? Mubarak must resign to prevent bloodshed. The protest appeared to be better organized on Tuesday, volunteers wearing tags reading "Security of the People." The various protesters have little in common beyond the demand that the Egyptian president go. Perhaps the most significant tension among them is between the young secular activist and the Muslim Brotherhood, who wants to form an Islamic state in the Arab world's largest nation. They are suspicious that the Brotherhood aims to opt out what they contend is a spontaneous popular movement. In a nod to the suspicions, the Brotherhood figures insist they are not seeking a leadership role. Still, Brotherhood members appeared to be joining the protests in greater numbers and more openly. During the first few days of the protest, the crowds in the square was composed of mostly young men in jeans and t-shirts. On Monday, however, many of the volunteers handing out food and water to the protesters were men in long traditional dress with the trademark of the Brotherhood appearance. Israel silently watching the unfolding of two new fronts. Egypt, one of the only two Arab states to sign peace with Israel, is wobbling dangerously on the brink of revolutionary change, with potential spreading fallout. This week, Israel was dismayed to find itself looking suddenly at 3 hostile fronts about to spring up around its borders. We are definitely seeing Israel being surrounded by armies. Middle East experts predict that however the Egyptian uprising turns out, in whatever direction it is pushed and pulled by the United States, it will end in a new election and a new civil government in which the Muslim Brotherhood will be substantially represented. A leader of the Muslim Brotherhood of Jordan and a close ally of Hamas said Egypt's unrest will spread across the Middle East and Arabs will topple leaders allied with the United States. It's Hezbollah ruling from the shadows. The Hezbollah takeover could not have come at a more delicate moment in the Arab world. The fall of the Tunisian dictator on January 14th stripped away the sense of invulnerability that has helped the regime hold power throughout North Africa and the Middle East for decades at a time. In the last few days, growing unrest has hit Egypt, Algeria, and the Jordan. Suddenly, some of Washington's closest allies in the Middle East are being challenged by their own people. Those leaders are looking shaky, and nobody really knows who or what will replace them. Thousands march in Yemen to demand change of government. Inspired by the unrest that has ousted Tunisia's leader and spread to Egypt this week, witnesses estimated that there are around 16,000 demonstrators. The people want a change in president, protesters shouted. The president is a key ally of the United States in a war against al-Qaeda. The president has ruled for more than 3 decades. Could Syria be next domino to fall? Syrians are watching Egypt's popular uprising carefully. Syrians hold candles during a sit-in outside the Egyptian embassy in Damascus on January 29. The news from Cairo has brought with it a flutter of excitement to this country, founded on principles so similar to Egypt that the two nations were once joined as one. Like Egypt, Syria has been ruled for decades by a single party, with a security service that maintains an iron grip on its citizens. Could the domino effect that spread from the streets of Tunis to Cairo soon hit Damascus? Yemen next. 20,000 on streets in day of rage. I hope you guys are seeing the reoccurring theme here. First, we had a day of rage declared in Egypt. And now we are having a day of rage declared in Yemen. Followed by day of rage protests urged in Syria. Iran backs Egypt's revolution of the noble. The parliament supports the uprising of the Tunisian and Egyptian people. Iran's new foreign minister also hopes that the Egyptians' high aims, national demands, and resurrection of their glory could be achieved in the very near future. Tension in the Middle East and Asia has direct potential to lead to nuclear war. Tension in the Middle East and Asia has given rise to an escalating atomic arms and missiles race. Rogue states are also increasing their effort to secure chemical and biological weapons and the means to deploy them, leaving billions in the world's most densely populated area at risk of a devastating strike. States such as North Korea, Syria, and Iran are developing long-range missiles capable of hitting targets outside the region. Long-running hostilities between India and Pakistan, which both have nuclear weapon capabilities, are at the root of fears of a nuclear conflict in the region. A classified Pentagon study estimated in 2002 that a nuclear war between the two countries could result in 12 million deaths, in a region of increasing global economic significance. As we can see with these articles, there's a lot more going on than meets the eye. But as we know from one of the Muslim Brotherhood members himself, the goal is to take down any presidents that are in good standing with the United States, and then to gather up forces and attack Israel from all sides. Which, as we know from the Bible, that is exactly what will transpire. Which begs the question, why in the world would Obama invite the Muslim Brotherhood to attend a speech in Cairo in 2009, and then have a spokesman claim that they've never had contact with the Muslim Brotherhood, followed by a released article saying that they support the Muslim Brotherhood, though they are not sure if their intentions are nonviolent, when clearly their intentions are to completely take over the surrounding area, take down any presidents that support the United States, and to attack Israel. With all that's going on now, there is great potential for catastrophic aftermath of these protests. I don't think it's a coincidence that the USA recently released an article warning all US citizens in the entire world that they personally are in danger of terrorist threats. There's much evidence to believe that in the following weeks and months, we will see the continual systematic takedown of presidents that are in good standing with the US or Israel. And with the Iranian Revolution coming up on February 11th, there is even more reason to be on guard and truly watching as this crisis escalates and possibly boils over into other nations, even outside the Middle East. For this is only the beginning of a quote-unquote revolution.